How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to the final episode of the year 2022 of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. It is our year in a review. It's a review of the year that was 2022. With me, my co-host, Mr. Michael Zappy. Um, I got to admit, I was a little tired. Zappy hit me up. He's like, dude, we got to go out with a bang for the final episode of the year. I said, yeah, you're right. We have so much to talk about. So thank you for being with us. And we're going to start with Father Time, closing in on two legendary players. Just like there's not a lot of time left in this year, starting to look a little evident that there's not a lot of time in two particular icons of their sports. Talking about LeBron James, and I'm talking about Tom Brady. Kind of touched on this last show with Brett. Did a little bit of comparison. I shut down one of Brett's comparisons when he tried to tell me that what Brady did in Tampa was like what Kobe did without Shaq. And I was like, no, the hell it wasn't.
No.
But I did acknowledge that there was more of a comparison in terms of the age thing. The just looking a little more human when for so many years they were so far ahead of the pack. And well, that's where I left it with that. Your thoughts on this? Is this real? Is this just a bump in the road for both these guys? I mean, you're talking a combined 43 years of playing their respective sports?
It's real. Father Time is undefeated. Some people are able to delay it, but in Tom Brady's place, it's time. And I know it's not going to end this year. It's probably not going to end next year. And I think it's to the point now where he lost his wife. All he has are his kids, which he only sees 50% of the time, and his brothers in uniform, So I think Brady's going to keep going until a coach tells him, I'm sorry, man, we're going with somebody else. Yeah.
You suck,
and
Tom.
As far as LeBron James goes.
And when Blaine Gabbert gets that start.
Oh, God, the world will probably.
Blaine Gabbert might be the Grim Reaper for quarterbacks because he was the guy that signaled the end of CK7 as well.
That is a good point. As far as LeBron goes, man, he's younger, obviously. However, a lot more active in his sport. Tom Brady, he most of the time he stands in the pocket. He's not moving around, running back and forth.
No.
Nonstop. But we're also talking about the two athletes that have written the book on how to prolong your career for 20 plus years. I mean, if you want to live long, if you want to play a sport for a long period of time, if you want to be healthy, whatever your goal is, just follow those two. And chances are you're going to succeed in that department. I think Tom Brady's career is coming to an end closer than LeBron's. I don't think LeBron's going to call it quits until he at least plays 1 or 2 years with his son. I think he wants to play with Bronny James, and if he can postpone it to play with his other son as well, I'm sure he would, because what father wouldn't love to play with their sons in any sport whatsoever? I'll tip my hat off to LeBron for what he did on his birthday the other night, dropping 47 points. That was remarkable. I will say that, but he's still not the GOAT.
No, God, no. And while we're on it, let's just make this. I'm going to give you my top 5 all time, short and sweet. If you want to go top 10, I'm okay with that. I'll do it quick. No explanation necessary for most of these guys. Number 1, obviously, Michael Jordan. That goes without saying. Number 2 on my list is actually Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the NBA's all-time leading scorer for the better part of forever.
Same here.
Closing in on that, we know this. Number 3 is where it could actually start to get tricky. But number 3, I'm comfortable with putting Wilt Chamberlain there because of his dominance during the era. Number 4 might not be the most popular pick. It might be Irvin Magic Johnson. I feel that it was hard for me. I was going through all these Lakers, and I'm like, He's no worse. He's no worse than that. Just behind, and this is wild. So I got 4 Lakers out of my top 5. Number 5, I got Kobe Bryant. Number 6, Larry Bird. Number 7, LeBron James. Number 8, going Bill Russell. I can't put him higher than that. No disrespect to Bill Russell, the late great one. Product of his times, less teams. There were a lot of variables that led me to that. The greatest defensive player, probably. Offensive game not as honed in. Number 9, Hakeem Olajuwon. And number 10, Tim Duncan. Shaq just misses my top 10, as does Steph Curry. But I mean, when I say they miss it like that close. I would probably have Shaq at 11 and Curry at 12.
Yeah, so I'm
and
right there
Dirk's
with
up
you.
there too. Dirk is not far behind those guys either.
No, I mean, he's without question the greatest German to play the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 1 and 2, I'm neck and neck with you. It's going to be very hard for me to remove Jordan from number 1, and I don't care about what LeBron has done, because I'll present the argument that Jordan also went to college, played his years there, also retired for a couple of years in the 90s, then retired again.
Nobody retires, and then between a partial season, a season before that where he didn't play, nobody does 2 3-peats, one before one. That just doesn't happen. So
it doesn't.
No.
So, but my number 3 is actually going to be Kobe Bryant.
I'm okay with that.
Ever since when he got drafted by the Hornets, it was like you knew who he was, especially if you were a fan of basketball. I was one of those rare 10, 11-year-old kids that knew who high school basketball players were. And my son is also one of those. I think it's because he hears me always talking about it.
Right.
Number 4. Well, let me go back to Kobe. He did it with Shaq, and he did it without Shaq. He did it with Pau Gasol. And the guy always, had that mentality. There's a reason why he was called the Black Mamba,
Yes.
So, yeah, Kobe, rest in peace. I love the guy to death. Number 4 for me is going to be Tim Duncan. The greatest power forward to ever play the game, the way I look at it, and the way he did it the right way. Very quiet. He let his game do all the talking.
Yes.
Very, very humbled individual. Even when he was coming out of Wake Forest, he was just a great guy. Someone that anyone would want on their team. And for my number 5 is Magic Johnson. By far the greatest point guard to have played. Steph Curry is knocking on that door, but there's things that separate Magic from Curry, as well as what separates Chris Paul from Curry, so on and so forth. The things Magic Johnson did, obviously he was fighting with his own personal demons, fighting with a disease that to this day we're still fighting in the world. But, it's just you can't take away from his athletic ability. You can't take away from the things he did with the Lakers or even Michigan State, I'm only going to go top 5, but I will say for the top 10 that I will remove, surprisingly, LeBron was on it, but
I think Father Time just caught Zappy. That is undeniably the best face.
You got me?
No, you froze, and I said I think Father Time caught Zappy.
Yeah, Father Time's always catching me. So what I was saying is, for one that I'm removing from your top 10 is LeBron James. He can get back into it. But like I said before, I don't care about the points. I don't care about this. He's done it over a long period of time. And when you play that long, you're going to break some records. It's just like the NFL with the 17-game season. We're going to see records broken now. I put Steph Curry in.
What I want to let the viewer know, if you want to see an elaborate list, since this is the year in review, you got to dig into the catalog, but it is on YouTube. To celebrate last year's top 75 all-time players, I made my own top 75 list, which I broke down singularly into 3 different videos. Definitely give that a look and to expand on this topic in a massive way. And we talk about legends. So we're going to move it over to Legends We Lost. I believe you made a good point when you said, man, there were some icons, certainly some icons. Bill Russell.
Bill Russell. I mean,
the greatest winner in NBA history.
A guy that should be in more of those best of all time, the GOAT conversations. You know, he won 11 championships.
He did. I have mixed feelings on GOAT status because of the fact that I think there's other variables that are at play with that. He's a legend nonetheless.
The GOAT of his era. We'll call
the GOAT of his era. That's fair. Pele.
A big one. That one hurt me.
Yeah. Franco Harris. You know, these are guys that had massive impacts at different junctures. Harris in the 70s, Russell in the 60s.
Yeah, and you know, I can thinking about, you know, like a guy like Mike Leach. That was a big loss in the college football world, you know, or think of like Dan Reeves, an NFL coach that was around for a very long time.
Jim Fossil.
Jim Fossil, the greatest punter of all time, Ray Guy. You know,
Ray Guy. And we talk about legends. I want to talk about a collegiate legend, Dwayne Haskins.
That was
collegiate legend.
Gone way too young. He had the opportunity. He was finally in the right system to excel, and then the unfortunate thing happened. My boy Marion the Barbarian. That one brought a tear to my eye, you know. And then the big one for me is one of the greatest announcers ever, and that was Vince Scully. You know, the day he passed, it was just like, man, like, you know. And as we get older, we're gonna start seeing the people we grew to love pass, you know, and that's the sad thing about life.
Yeah, it is undeniably something that stinks. And somebody of less notoriety, but someone who was always dear to my heart, being a Notre Dame fan, as you yourself are. The reason I mention this is not because it happened this year, but because the anniversary is coming up early next year. Louis Nix,
yes.
You know, and he had a cup of coffee with the New York Football Giants. And whenever my professional team gets guys from my favorite college team, it's almost like right now we got Jalen Smith and Julian Love. So that always makes me excited when I see my Fighting Irish guys playing for my professional team. But, you know, just to keep it a buck, when it comes to that, I was a Jalen Smith fan when he was donning your team's colors, because we don't forget who played for the Irish just because you might be a rival in the pros. And it's kind of the same way that, yes, Tom Landry did some wonderful things with the Dallas Cowboys, but, you know, we always consider him a member of our family too, because like the saying goes, once a Giant, always a Giant. You know, keeping it on New York for a moment, another huge thing that happened this year. A captain is new after crushing 62. A lot of New York fans were in a bit of a panic mode, thinking that he was going to go to the San Francisco Giants. It was quite a finger, you know, kind of like biting your nails a little bit with some of that. To put it in perspective on what being a captain for that organization, the New York Yankees, means. That guy behind me, Don Mattingly, is one of those guys that was a captain. Let me move this camera over. Just bear with me. Wrong way. That guy in the middle, Derek Jeter. And the guy all the way in the corner with the bat in his hand, Thurman Munson.
Yep.
Those are the last three captains before Aaron Judge. Only two of those guys were in my lifetime. Thurman Munson's career was cut short because of an untimely death. Don Mattingly's career was cut short because of the injuries piling up and also prioritizing family matters over the game that he loved. Derek Jeter, he was able to play 20 years and was able to kind of break that hex of Yankee captains just going through some unfortunate things. Aaron Judge ties Yankee legend, Roger Maris. Yes, I said it, Yankee legend, because when he played, he wasn't embraced. Over the course of time, he was. And I think it was kind of special that Judge broke the record where he did. We spoke on it as a huge lead up during the season. I think it was great for the game of baseball. And what I really enjoyed about it is that I think it took some of that stink out of the air with the steroid era. He didn't need to hit 70 or 72 or 74 or 78 for it to feel as real as it was. And what I enjoyed about this is that I feel that Roger Maris got a raw deal not only when he was alive, but posthumously when McGwire, Mark McLeyer, basically made his family look stupid and kind of took a crap on that family. I think it was great how Roger Maris finally got the proper acknowledgement and how hard that record was to get. And I think the fact that it was done by another Yankee made it all the more sweet. If you haven't, and if you love sports movies, I suggest you watch 61. I think Barry Pepper and Thomas Jane nailed those two roles playing Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, really encapsulating what that home run race was that year and taking the temperature of sports in New York, where Mickey Mantle was viewed as an icon and Roger Maris was viewed as a visitor. Quite the movie.
That was a good movie. Yeah, it is cool, man. And like you say, it's one thing to be to become a captain for your respective team, whether it's in the high school level, collegiate level, NFL, whatever. But when you ask people, name me the first three teams that come to your head, it's probably going to be the Yankees, Cowboys, and Lakers.
More than likely, yeah. And maybe the Celtics?
Maybe the Celtics. And then when you think of the Yankees, I mean, they've won the most Major League Baseball pennants.
Yes,
they've won
40.
the most World Series.
27.
So, and then when you hear he's the 16th one in that long, phenomenal franchise's career to be named captain, hey, that was one of the stipulations. He said he wanted to become captain in New York. And I remember when I got that message across my screen, I called you right away. I was like, dude, you got it, and
it was done the right way in my estimation. And I think that there's so much to be said about what it requires to be a captain for that organization. Thurman Munson was not the best player on those 70s Yankee teams. It was actually Reggie Jackson. But some would argue that maybe Dave Winfield was the best player, not necessarily Don Mattingly. Maybe Ricky Henderson was the best player, not necessarily Don Mattingly. Some would also argue that Bernie Williams, during the height of our dynasty, may have been the best rounded player, not necessarily Derek Jeter. All I'm going to say is that while I love all the players that I just named, the Yankees got it right with Judge, and they also got it right with those other three men that I named. One of the biggest jokes is that fella behind me is not in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, and I'm going to call out the Hall of Fame committee. Figure it out. There's three guys I want in the Hall, a few more than that. You finally got it right with the Negro Leagues. That needed to happen. But I have a request, MLB. I want Don Mattingly, Shoeless Joe Jackson, and Pete Rose in the damn Hall of Fame. Get it done.
And we hit on that hard in a previous episode, and I stand by it. I will fight by it. I hope it happens in my lifetime because it will be something beautiful to actually witness.
I mean, right here, we're doing like a little tour here and there of this room. Is it on? Can you see it? It's my little Mattingly shrine right there. I mean, I got other stuff, but he's definitely the centerpiece. Shout out John Olson for finding that piece for me. I appreciate you. I was able to talk down the deal because the bat had a slight chip, which even makes it more authentic. Yeah, and while we talk about this Aaron Judge thing, we're going to talk about the other New York team as well. Shades of George Steinbrenner in terms of the reckless spending. No price is too steep for Uncle Stevie. But resetting the market so ridiculously, outrageously, is it bad for baseball?
Is it bad for baseball? I mean, you could look at it this way: is it going to put fans in the seats? And if it puts fans in the seats,
And then
then it's good for baseball.
Right, right.
And I see the Mets, they're going to be paying $53 million, I believe it is, in luxury tax this season. So
Yes.
that's going to benefit the smaller market teams. So that's the other positive that comes out of it. And I look at my team like the Rangers, they're kind of starting to take that same approach. Last year they spent over $500 million in free agency. This offseason, they've spent a lot of money on pitching this time. Last year was hitting.
I got them going roughly, give or take, slightly above, slightly under 500. But I do think that within the next 3 years, they're going to be a legitimate factor in that division. And maybe they'll be the team in Texas that people may pay more attention to, because I think their time is near.
Yeah, their time is definitely near. I'm similar. I think their ceiling is 88 wins. The floor is probably 76, 75.
I was gonna say around 78. The floor. I don't. My ceiling isn't quite as high as yours. I was gonna give them like 85. The bottom line is they're going in the right direction.
They're going in the right direction. But I think just like we see it in the NFL, where to win a championship you got to spend money.
Right.
I think we're starting to see that again in baseball, and it's usually the big market teams that win. Granted, there's the occasional Florida Marlins that comes out victorious. But you have to pay to win. You have to be willing to spend money. I'll say one team that we would never see this from probably is the Las Vegas Raiders, because that is their business. Not like other owners that are successful on the oil fields or successful in creating Heinz or whatever. So that's the difference between the NFL is they're literally digging into their pockets. Baseball has a much larger market. I think we're going to see it more. I think it's going to be good for baseball in time, but it's also going to take away from the smaller market teams.
See, I got a mixed feeling on this. The thing is, and we spoke about this on other shows too, there has to be a responsibility doled out to some of these other teams. Sergio made a great point. When I was off air speaking with Sergio, talking some baseball, Sergio brought to my attention that his genuine opinion is that the Yankees are great at running a business, not necessarily great at running an organization right now. And I think there are two ways to look at it. But where I tend to agree with Sergio is that he made a good example of saying how busting up the luxury tax doesn't necessarily reap the same rewards for the Yankees as it would for a Mets or a Dodgers. And the reason I kind of agree with him is because when the Yankees make moves like that, they essentially could be feeding their competition. And in the AL East, it's been proven that, oddly enough, with the exception of the Boston Red Sox, the Baltimore Orioles, Tampa Bay Rays are both two teams that are willing to get that little bit of extra and do something with it, as opposed to just tanking out and just putting a poor product on the field, where in the National League, I do tend to believe that your Arizona Diamondbacks, your Colorado Rockies, your Pittsburgh Pirates are terrible. The Marlins, Reds, the Brewers, Johnny's Brewers.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a tragedy too, because they're always kind of scratching the wild card, but they just never do anything to keep that fan base, giving them a reason to believe that they could take the next step. And
they take the Billy Bean approach.
Yeah, but it's oh man. And oddly enough, Billy Bean, Fenway Group, he is involved, not baseball related, but there is a philosophy that's trickling down into that baseball team, and believe it, it's real. You mentioned the Raiders, so I did want to bring this, and then we're going to come back around. Coaching. There's so many layers to this. I did a video. Once again, check it out in our catalog on YouTube. You can find it. Speaking about the lawsuit that Brian Flores put on the New York Giants, Denver Broncos, but most especially his former employer, the Miami Dolphins. So I'm talking about his untimely firing to interim head coach Rich Bisaccia, who did something incredible, navigating the team during the Henry Ruggs vehicular homicide tragedy, which ruined his life and took the life of a young woman. Then you're talking about the offensive emails that were released with the John Gruden situation. For him to be able last season to keep that team on the same page and to not let them kind of just lose their way spoke volumes of the job that he did. And his reward was, we're going to replace you with the hot name coordinator. And I'm like, dude, it was wrong on so many levels. And then you look at Saturday in Indy. Yes, we are playing him tomorrow, my New York Football Giants. Have a chance to clinch a playoff spot. Haven't been able to say that since 2016. Am I excited? Bet your ass I'm excited.
As long as they don't go on a boat trip.
Shout out Gary Teeter. Last time the New York Giants clinched the playoff berth, oddly enough, was the first time I ever met Gary in my life. Just happened to be at the same bar. My girlfriend at the time dropped me off, picked me up later. And Gary and his beautiful wife, Shauna, were there. He was wearing his Odell Beckham, and I was wearing my Victor Cruz. We defeated the Washington Redskins, now the Washington Commanders. And we clinched our playoff spot. The Packers beat the crap out of us. And then a week later, won a thriller against your team that particular season. And then an undermanned Packer team, because they had so many injuries, just couldn't deal with the Falcons. And we know how that ended. The most absurd comeback in Super Bowl history. But just to put it in perspective, that's the last time my team's been to the playoffs.
Here's a quick fact for you. I think you know this, but the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history, the greatest comeback in playoff history.
That happened this year too.
And the greatest comeback in regular season history all belong to Mr. fucking Ryan. Excuse my
being
language.
On the wrong side
of
those events.
Excuse my language.
Poor guy. And granted, he doesn't play defense. And I said that on the show too not too long ago. But my God, you got to have some sort of luck. It's just a different level of just horrific luck.
It is. I don't. It still brings up the question about these owners. Most of these owners are stuck in the past, not willing to change. You know, I made a comment the other day that because someone was complaining about the Cowboys players, how they were arriving to the stadium dressed nice, but not what someone in the past grew used to with the suit and tie, you know? And I said, you know, the times have changed and it's the norm. Like it's acceptable. And they actually don't look bad. Like a lot of the fashion that these professional athletes wear or any celebrity, whatever, it actually looks pretty good. And he mentioned times haven't changed. The people have changed. So that's the point I'm making is I don't think these owners are going to change. So that's why we're seeing issues with like a Brian Flores or a Rich Bisaccia, where, I mean, we're talking about a black coach and an Italian coach. And then we're talking about Josh McDaniels, who already proved once that he was a failure of a head coach. Yet again, here he is leading the Las Vegas Raiders. And because of him, Las Vegas is going to say goodbye to Derek Carr. He ruined his time there. Derek Carr said that he will not play for any other team. He will retire. We're about to call his bluff here in the next couple months. And then we look at
I think he
Brian
will retire
Flores.
because he almost retired earlier in his career because of his passion and desire to want to be a pastor. One thing I have a lot of fun. I do have a lot of fun playing around with Derek Carr. But one thing that I will never deny is that he's real.
He is real. Absolutely. He is. But, you know, I think he's the Colts' next quarterback, personally. I don't think he's going to call it quits. I think he wants to win.
But at what point do the Colts get tired of just bringing in these guys that are on the banana peel?
And that's a very good point. And the only reason why I say they bring them in is because they have to bring them in, but they have to draft someone.
Yes.
Because you're not going to go
They
draft.
have completely neglected that thing since Andrew Luck untimely retired. They kept thinking, we can just plug in a veteran. It hasn't worked.
And I don't want to guarantee it, but I can almost guarantee that come draft day with the number 3, 4, or 5 selection in the 2023 NFL draft, the Indianapolis Colts select quarterback from Kentucky, Will Levis.
Makes sense on a lot of levels.
That's got Jim Irsay written all over it.
Yeah, it makes sense on a lot of levels. What I would personally like to see, just from like a dramatic level, is waited out sometime and maybe Arch Manning goes there. That would be crazy.
Well, I saw somebody talking about how Jim Irsay's got the right plan, that he's going to be tanking the next few years to land Arch Manning in 3 years, and then land Marvin Harrison Jr. in 2 years, and then land Arch Manning in 3 years, and he's that would be insane.
Does Saturday have a kid that plays football?
No, he'll probably still be coaching that team.
No, you know what they'll do? They'll just put him back at center. They're like, well, you can't coach, so here, just play center again.
But yeah, it's it's a sad thing, but I think we're going to continue to see it because, like I said, people don't.
It's the Billionaire Boys Club. They hook up their boys.
That's what it is.
They hook up their boys.
They hook up their boys.
Look at Ray Hanley. When Ray Hanley got handpicked by the late great George Young, yes, he was late. He was the late great George Young, but that was not a great move. Ray Hanley, bro.
It wasn't.
That dude just went to total obscurity and just like disappeared. Does anybody even know who that man is?
It's probably on the Raiders staff, but we don't know about it.
Grass versus turf. What's the call? And Miami can't handle concussion protocol.
Ooh, I like that.
You're damn right.
I like that.
Well, I have never in my life seen, this is once again related to this particular year, how many more of these injuries, non-contact injuries. In the era that I grew up watching football, late 80s, early 90s, yes, we understand the CTE stuff and the evolution of that and so many other variables. But I personally feel playing this game on some kind of weird restriction, especially when you're playing on not the best surface, is a great way to get hurt while you're trying not to hurt somebody else, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
For the second time this season, possibly the third time this season, the Miami Dolphins, once again, are under investigation for a mishandling of concussion protocol with the same fucking player. And I know, do not pardon my language. We're talking about Tua Tagovailoa. It's terrible, man. And this is a professional team. When I look at this kind of crap, it makes me look at them almost like a dirty high school program or a dirty college program.
This is a professional team.
And not to interrupt you, I want you to smash this. One last thing about Miami, because I will forget to say this. Even going back to the tampering situation that Brady almost entangled himself into, then was smart enough to think twice and just say, let's go back to Tampa. Continue, my bad.
Well, as you say that, I mean, let's look at all the common things we have here. We're talking about a team that cannot handle their concussions with their quarterback that you and I said when he suffered his concussion against the Bengals that it's time.
Yes.
Do not put your life at risk.
No.
It is time. This is a human being.
Yes.
We talked about that. And then we just spoke about the way the Brian Flores handling, that's strike two right there. And then we're talking about just everything else. It's all kinds of stuff. It's a bigger picture in Miami that needs to be addressed. It absolutely does.
And I got news for you. I do not like their coach. And it's not so much that I know enough, but when you just got a vibe that you just don't like a dude. There is something about that dude that just don't rub me right.
I liked Mike McDaniel. I did, because I think about him in the box being the OC of the 49ers.
I'm starting to question his integrity is what I'm getting.
That's exactly where I was going with it. And watching him in the box, he looked like a coach, like a likable guy, was doing the right things. But then now we're talking about him now. I mean, we're talking about a guy that was wearing "I love the cold weather" or whatever, stuff like that, flaunting around, like trying to be a player. You're a head football coach. I understand trying to be a player's coach, but you also have to be professional to some level. And you also have to take control of your team and sit there and say, I don't care what the doctor says, you're not playing anymore. And we've seen it. And I mean, we saw this team fired their sideline doctor.
Yeah, they made him the whole guy. Again. It reminded me of WWF, now currently WWE, when Dr. Zahorian took all the heat, trying to act like Vince wasn't a drug dealer. Come on, bro.
Yeah,
come on, bro.
It's ridiculous.
And Hulk Hogan, went on the Arsenio show and totally jerked off the nation on that. And what pissed me off about that show with Hulk Hogan, once again, talking about integrity. This guy was quoted as saying, "This is not the Lyle Alzado story." Lyle Alzado had his demons off the field. I get it, but I wanted to say something. I had the pleasure and privilege of playing with Lyle Alzado's son, Justin, as a young man with the Inwood Buccaneers in New York. My father was on that coaching staff. Lyle came to some of our games a couple of years before he got sick. A gentleman through and through. And what pissed me off is that one of the biggest phonies that was a pop culture icon in Hulk Hogan took liberties and took shots at, in my opinion, a pretty good man. So that's all I'm going to say about Hulk Hogan. That guy's an asshole, and I think his time has revealed. No, you're right. This isn't the Lyle Alzado story because he couldn't hold Lyle Alzado's jockstrap. Yeah, Lyle had a big heart. I want to make that very clear in case somebody wasn't aware. That dude had a very big heart and very human, very human. He didn't come in like I'm a former Super Bowl champion and I'm a big deal. He came in as a father. He came in as a sincere person that was just about being there for us as very impressionable young kids. And, what I like about what Lyle did, and we talk about integrity, is that he owned his demons. He spoke about it in Sports Illustrated, an issue that my father had at the time. And I think it takes some big cojones when you know you're dying, but you want to tell kids not to make the mistakes you made. I think it speaks volumes about his character. Reason I got all sidetracked with that, with the McDaniel thing, is because, like I said, we were talking about integrity, and I said that it reminds me of a poor college program, a dirty one. And speaking of college, I know you want to rip on this.
Yeah, man. This college football playoff this year has more than provided. I mean, we're talking about probably two top classics, top 10, probably top 5, maybe. TCU and Michigan today, that was an extremely wonderful game on all levels. We're talking about a young guy in Max Duggan who he was defeated when they lost.
No relation to Hacksaw for the wrestling heads, because I just talked about Hulk Hogan. No relation to the big Hacksaw.
No, but Max Duggan, after watching him in the Big 12 championship game, he looked defeated. He was disappointed in himself, apologizing to the fan base. And then to watch him today, he didn't have the numbers, should I say. I mean, he was 14 of 29 for 279 yards, I believe. But what he showed today was the willing to keep fighting and to do whatever it takes. On the ground, he was a monster. TCU was not expected to win this game. I was one of very few people that picked them. And what Max Duggan did? No, what Max Duggan did, he showed up when he needed to show up. A phenomenal game. I mean, TCU came out early, punched them in the mouth, and we're up 10-0. And then all of a sudden, Michigan started going to work, and it turned into a slugfest in the second half. I mean, a shootout.
Feels good. It feels good at this time of the year in that sport and that part of football, that level of football, to see the upset.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say, and if you didn't get a chance to watch it, I think you should, because there's a guy that you should be really paying attention to, and that's Quentin Johnson. Especially if it's a trade-up type situation. He just climbed up the draft boards after his performance today. Great wide receiver, and it's someone, 6'4", running a 4.4, and it was on full display when he caught that 76-yard touchdown today. So that's someone I think you should keep an eye on for this upcoming April. And then as far as the other one goes, we have Ohio State and Georgia that just started the third quarter. Ohio State jumped on them early, went up 21-7, and now Georgia came back, tied it up at 21, took the lead 24-21, and are now losing to Ohio State 35-24. So this has been a slugfest, and this is also proving to be another classic right here. Marvin Harrison Jr., he is similar to his father. He took control of this game early, and he has not looked back.
We talk about integrity. One of the biggest reasons I'm happy the way Notre Dame got their season together after a terrible start is because Brian Kelly left these guys high and dry. Big win, Gator Bowl, and you like what the future looks like.
I do. You know, it's sad to see that Michael Mayer and Isaiah Foskey didn't get the opportunity to play in the playoff. You know, it's the way the season started, a hard-fought loss to Ohio State, but then really laid a goose egg the following week. And unfortunately, they weren't able to recover from that because when you lose to a Miami of Ohio, it doesn't look good on your resume. Then we look at yesterday. I mean, Notre Dame came out flat. They were down 21-7 early at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with Tyler Buchner, how he put the Irish on his back. And, you know, he did have a 3-touchdown game, passing with 3 interceptions, but he also rushed for 2 touchdowns. And it turned into a great game. When they were down, 27-10, it almost felt like, all right, South Carolina's about to run away with it. Spencer Rattler's about to take off. And then Notre Dame just woke up. They relied on their defense. They relied on their running game. They relied on everything, and they just battled back. And once they took the lead, they never looked back after that. I love what they did in recruiting last year as well as this year. As we already know, Notre Dame is tight end U, and they do have a nice up-and-coming tight end for next year. The loss of Isaiah Foskey will hurt, but, you know, Drew Pine did transfer. But Tyler Buchner, it took big steps, especially today after that comeback victory or yesterday against South Carolina. I'm excited about the Irish. I'm excited about what 2023 holds for them, honestly.
And what I like about your assessment is while we're both Notre Dame fans, I don't feel that either one of us are too excited. It's like a responsible analysis and not an overreaction. And why do I use the word overreaction? As I said, this is a yearly review. From Arson Judge to Carlos Correa. Now, Correa was never printed in no paper. The reason for my sarcasm, and you might as well throw Odell to the Giants and Odell to the Cowboys in there too, because many media outlets gave me and Zappy a dual handy on that one. Why is getting the scoop not as important as getting the facts? This is not a question. This is not for Zappy and I to so much as even say a word on. I just want to make sure that my sarcasm holds true. John Heyman quickly. Arson Judge. He misspelled his name. This has been the best meme in sports this year. He misspelled his name. And then he told him he was signing with the Giants. Jumped the gun on that. He was a Yankee captain within 6 days of that breaking. Carlos Correa, the reason I say Correa is because why not? I could say what I want to, apparently. He was a Giant, and he wasn't. And he was a Met. Maybe he isn't.
When it's all said and done, he's going to be an Athletic.
And the reason why I put Korea is because the way things are going, he might have to play baseball in Korea. Okay, I'm going to move this along to what we were right about and what we were wrong about. I'm going to raise my hand quickly on this. What was I right about? When Brett defiantly said, check out TikTok on this video. This is funny. They're living together and they're rooming together. And what do you mean he's not going to improve? We're talking about Derek Carr. Yeah, that's a we. We were right about that. What were we wrong about? What were we wrong about? Both of us. We're wrong about Odell Beckham.
And the Colts.
We did strike out hard on the Colts. We both had high expectations for that team. But I must say, revisit the catalog. Our divisional previews were very interesting. I've got to give my guy right here, Zappy, some props. It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't come to fruition yet, but it looks interesting. Because Zappy did say that the Green Bay Packers would not win the division, but they would get hot and they would make some kind of playoff push as a wild card. And he also alluded to why they were better on the road as a finesse team. I will give Brett some props. Brett did subscribe to that notion, too, on different junctures of our football season. I'm going to give Bretsky that one. I'll tell you another one I was right about. New York Giants winning 8 to 9 games. I didn't call playoffs. I did say 8 to 9 games. tomorrow, if the New York Giants win their 9th game of the season, they will be in the playoffs as the 6th seed. And also, what else was I right about? That with competent coaching, Daniel Jones is not all that terrible. I'd like to get him some help at the wide receiver position.
Maybe Johnson.
There's guys out there. There's answers out there. Wrong about. Oh, we were right about Sauce Gardner. Right about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'll quote Brett again, what he was wrong about. The Jets. What? And,
And we were right about that one. The big one for me, I guess when we were doing our division by division preview, and obviously the Vikings won, because I was very confident that they would be an 11-win team. And
yeah, you did call that.
And they would win the division. However, I also said the Packers would be an 11-win team, but it would be the head-to-head that was the difference, or the division. The other one was the Eagles, or I guess the NFC East and the Eagles. I remember my initial prediction was 12-5, but I said, however, I can easily see this team going 14-3
I
based on the
believe
schedule.
that I nailed the NFC East 1 through 4. I did have the Giants finishing 3rd.
Yeah, you and I nailed the NFC East. I did say the one thing I will not be surprised, and I remember Brett was saying, "You are crazy."
Yeah, I said it too.
I said, "What? Don't be surprised if the Commanders get hard, or do the right thing, because they have the defense, they have the running game, where they can sneak into the playoffs or even win 9 games, 9 games, and they're right there." The Giants, though, that I will say I was wrong about the Giants. I wasn't really sold on them, and I think it's because of the years and years of
futility.
Yeah, the futility as well. But we did hit on how Brian Dable was the right coach for Daniel Jones, and he's proven it time and time again. And here we are. I could say the other thing we were wrong about, and I think everyone was wrong about, was the AFC West. Everyone expected that to be a powerhouse, and it's the NFC East this year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the Chargers and Broncos definitely disappointed. I don't think I was all that crazy about Russ going to Denver, but I certainly didn't expect his plight to be this much of a train wreck.
We had him finishing in last.
We did, but we had him. Yeah, we had him as like a decent team finishing in last. Second to last thing we're going to hit on before we get out of here. Favorite sports moment of 2022. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. In hockey, when my New York Rangers, this is not my favorite moment. I'm just going to go by team, but then I will give you my favorite.
Gotcha. Okay.
When my New York Rangers silenced the Pittsburgh crowd and basically just stole that series, just came back from the doldrums 3-1, and we have a history coming back from 3-1. Round 1, feel good after losing triple overtime in game 1. That was tough to swallow. Another favorite sports moment of this past year, obviously it goes without saying, 61 and 62 from Aaron Judge. What else can be deemed a favorite sports moment of this year? This might be a little bit of a surprise. When the New York Giants beat the Chicago Bears 2012 in a very ugly game in MetLife Stadium wearing the throwbacks. Why was that so special to me? Because in 2019, in 2018, in 2017, that's a game the Giants would have lost. They lost both quarterbacks. Saquon Barkley manned down the quarterback position, running a very conservative form of the Wildcat, and the Giants put it on their defense and said, go win this game for us. And they did. And I think that was a turning point in me believing that the Giants, there was a little more to this, and it wasn't just a favorable schedule at the beginning of the year. I do think we have some credible wins. Granted, the Tennessee Titans are not the team that they were when we beat them on 9/11, but they were a much better team when we played them. I'll put it to you like that.
That's a good way.
I was in attendance with our buddy Idris and friends of the show, Gary and Shauna, in Duval against the Jaguars. At the time, leaving Jacksonville, we were 6-1. By no means did I think that we beat a really awesome team in Jacksonville. Guess what, people? If the Jacksonville Jaguars win tomorrow, that means the New York Giants defeated the South champions. We also defeated the Baltimore Ravens, and they're playing pretty good football, coming back from a 2-score deficit to steal that game at home. They might be in a position to play for the division title next week. We shall see how that pans out. Cincy definitely has the advantage there. But my favorite sports moment of 2022 actually involved a game that not too many people might not remember. Talking about August 17th, 2022. It was my late father's birthday. We're playing the Tampa Bay Rays. We're in the slump of all slumps. We just need a damn win. And there was this odd rain delay. I mean, a long, long rain delay that just took all the starters out of the game. And my mom tells me on the phone, oh, this rain delay actually helps the Yanks. I think they're going to come back and get a cheap win. They're going to figure it out. They're going to steal this game. So anyway, I'm talking to Zappy. About an hour and a half later when the game comes back, Yankees needed like every possible break to win this thing. It ultimately came down to me saying, we're going to get a walk, a single, another walk, and then a grand slam from Josh Donaldson. With a few minutes left in my late father's birthday, Josh Donaldson hit a grand slam, and it wasn't exactly something that I expected. I was talking out of my ass. It happened exactly how it happened. And I think the beauty in sports, just like the beauty in life, is that sometimes you see certain things that remind you why you're a fan and certain things that just can't possibly be really explained. It meant a lot to me that day. The Yankees did not start a winning streak after that. They continued to
They went the other way.
They continued to slump, but they did get it together and were able to win a playoff series. But yes, Josh Donaldson, a guy who I'm not even the big fan of, that is my favorite sports moment of 2022. And hopefully my favorite sports moment of 2023, or at least my first favorite moment, will involve a New York Giants road playoff victory.
Wow. So I was hoping you weren't going to say that one specific moment, because that was I'll never forget that conversation. Just talking. I was having some drinks.
We were having some drinks. Yeah.
And we're just talking, and we couldn't watch the game. I was watching it on my ESPN casting thing.
And I was having an issue with Bally Sports Network. So I actually listened.
That's right.
So I actually listened to it on the Yankees radio network on my phone.
And I was, when you made that prediction, I'm like, yeah, like that's going to happen.
It was laughable.
It was. And then I'm like, oh, hey, Rich, you got to walk. Oh, you got to hit. And I remember my computer refreshed, and I was like, oh my God, you guys just hit a grand slam. No, we didn't. Yeah, we did. What the? And it was just it was such a special moment. And it really was. And,
and then we did a couple of shots to my dad too. I remember that.
Yes, we did take a couple of shots to your dad. That was one of my favorites this year. I will say that although my Cowboys lost in that game, one of my favorite moments was actually getting to go and physically see Tom Brady live as opposed to on the TV.
I too have seen him live once, 2015 against the Giants.
And it was just one of those things on my bucket list. And when the game was announced that we were opening up against the Buccaneers, I was like, I have to go. Yeah. Like I can not miss the opportunity, because
we both got beat too. Yeah. At least yours wasn't an annoying last second field goal. That's how we lost. But
no, I'll take yours over mine.
Against Eli Manning. But I'll take the 2 Super Bowl victories and the 3-2 head-to-head record.
Exactly. And I'd look at I'm gonna save that one for last. When Aaron Judge got that home run, it was a huge memory for me because it happened against my team. And I remember, here's the worst part. I was supposed to go to that series.
Right.
And it just, things happened. I'm not going to get into them. You're aware of them. I didn't end up going. But just to be like, I was pulling for Judge. I wanted to see him do it because of the various reasons. We talk about steroids. We talk about this.
Yeah.
And then for my Cowboys, I guess it would be seeing Tom Brady, but honestly, the Christmas Eve game against the Eagles,
Yeah.
that was a phenomenal game. It was definitely my favorite game of the Cowboys this year. I loved I loved the World Cup final, watching Messi go up against Mbappe, going to penalty kicks. I mean, Messi gets the hat trick, or I'm sorry, not Messi. Mbappe gets the hat trick in the game after they were down 2-0 and still came back and forth game. The greatest football game I've ever seen in my life, at least in my lifetime. The big one for me, this one's actually going to surprise you. Watching Steph Curry get that ring, get that MVP. I cried. You could ask my son, you could ask my wife, you could ask them all. I cried in that moment watching him overcome all the adversity he had faced the last few seasons with
Mhm.
injuries and then Klay Thompson injuries, the Kevin Durant debacle, everything, and for that team to come back and win and then to see the emotions with Steph Curry, I ended up handing down my Steph Curry jersey to my son that night. I mean, there's a photo. I have a photo of him because I had just bought him a couple of Steph Curry cards and Klay Thompson cards, and he's wearing the jersey and holding up the cards and standing below my TV with Klay and Steph on there. That was a very special moment for me on many levels. My son is a huge Warriors fan. He was born in California. He loves Steph. He loves Klay, and to share that moment with my son was phenomenal. And it makes me look forward to the moments I'm going to share with him one day where the Cowboys win the Super Bowl or the Longhorns or Irish win the national title or things like that, or if the Rangers make the playoffs and get back to the World Series. It's one of those things. So that was definitely my favorite sports moment, is watching Steph Curry get his fourth NBA title.
Before we get out of here, we're coming up on almost 2.5 minutes. Resolutions for ourselves and our sports teams. Before I say anything, first and foremost, I want to thank everyone who has subscribed, who's taken time. Time is precious, and I know that. Who has taken time to watch our show, to help build the brand. I took over this show a week before last year's Super Bowl, and I must say I'm very pleased with where we're at, and I'm even more excited about where we're going. So I guess you could say my resolution, one of them. I'm going to say talk less, listen more. I will be the first to admit that while it's one of my good qualities, it can also be one of my bad ones. I do have a propensity for not being the best listener. Always room for improvement there. Growing the brand, just growing the brand and continuing to enjoy doing this. And quite frankly, without the people who support and watch the show, quite frankly, there is no show. So I just want to humbly say thank you to all of you. And I want to do a quick shout out list. Mr. John Olson, Mr. Brett Bandick, obviously it goes without saying, Mike Zappy, Idris Salam, our boy Quentin Moore, Gary, and Shauna. My mother, she's always hitting me with articles. Friend of the show, Zay, gave us a song for the previous show, the Jordan Patrick show. He was on a hip hop show, which was a blast. I just want to say thank you to everyone who supports the show, and a happy new year to everyone. Zappy, I'm giving you the final 70 seconds.
So, same here. I want to say thank you to everyone out there who is helping us grow. But more importantly, I got to say thank you to Richie, to you. There were many times that you had to talk to me about, hey, whenever I come to Florida, you should come on the Jordan Patrick show with you. And I said, I would love to.
I do recall those conversations.
And then when the moment came back in June, I think it was, that you were like, hey, man, you need to come on my show sometime. And then I was like, yeah, let's make it happen. So thank you, man, because it's one thing I've been wanting to do is podcast. For my resolution is to grow, to continue to grow together, and work on getting some names
20
to talk.
seconds.
I got it. And for my sports team, hey, we just need to go out there and get past the divisional round. That's the 2023 resolution for the Cowboys. We make it to the NFC title game.
Thank you.